Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is forgiveness. Is forgiveness something we grant to others for their benefit or for our own? So I think it'll be an interesting conversation to explore the dynamics of forgiveness. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. Let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, and the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good to be here with you this Monday morning. So we're going to talk about forgiveness. And sometimes it's just really, really hard to imagine forgiving. I guess we get to look at what forgiveness really means. What is it and what does it mean? So forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, doesn't mean forgetting the transgressions or the harms that we've experienced. But it may mean stepping outside of all the judgments that we've made, the stories that we have created, the case that we have developed against someone else, to allow for what happened, and to be able to clear the slate in an emotional way so that we are not binding ourselves to the resentments and the anger and the frustration, the loss. Let's see what you're saying here, Rosalind. Rosalind says, the grief of losing something you covet, the loss was not by choice, but I guess everything is a choice. Well, on some level, everything is a choice, for sure. And the thing is that when we hold resentments and anger and sorrow and regrets, and what's happening is that we're expending a lot of energy to hold all those things, right? To keep the anger and upset alive takes a lot of our life energy. And while we can be cautioned by our experience, holding all those extra emotions around that experience is ultimately damaging to us, right? So what is forgiveness? Maybe it's a clearing of the heart, to be able, you can love someone and not desire to interact with them. You can love someone and have have constraints about your engagement with them. Holding the forgiveness is holding or withholding ourselves, right? And I'm not saying that, if someone has shown themselves to be deeply out of integrity, I think that it's possible to forgive them and also be aware, to be respectful of yourself and your own boundaries in regard to them. So Rosalind says the result of forgiveness opens a pathway to be less triggered. Exactly. So, in its way, forgiveness is a selfish act, or it is an act of self-care. Because in a way, what we're doing is we are accepting things as they are, or as they were, without all our judgment and our story and our blame and our all these active emotions that are destructive to ourselves, right? So it opens a pathway to be less triggered. It opens a pathway to be free, to be freer. Because if I'm holding all kinds of resentments, there's a fixedness about that, a stagnant space of being from which that holding is coming, right? I'm holding on to my righteousness, my anger, my indignation, and who is that hurting? Ultimately, it's really not hurting the other person. It's me that's carrying around all those feelings, right? And so when we are able to forgive, maybe what it is a release of all of that pent up energy. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you put yourself in a position to be hurt in the same way by that person going forward. You have a sense of who they've been. It doesn't mean who they will continue to be, but you free yourself up to be present. So as you said, Rosalind, to be less triggered, to actually be present. So I'm not advocating being foolish or uninformed. And what I mean by that is I don't advocate pretending that what happened didn't happen. It's just using that as information rather than to make a case about somebody, rather than holding this whole dialogue about who somebody is and the essence of their being. And, to be able to step away from that. We've all done things that we've not been proud of. And if that were the metric by which we were judged, then forever, that could be a very destructive experience for us, right? That we are not, in essence, we are not our behavior. It doesn't mean that we always behave well or we always behave poorly. We have a spectrum of experiences, and forgiveness is a space of greater open-heartedness, right? It doesn't mean opening your heart to be tromped on. It just means being able to give yourself space to be present in the moment instead of perceiving through the limited lens of the past. So in a way, it's kind of learning to hold paradox. If someone shows you again and again through their behavior that you and they have different values, for example, then that's something to be alert to, and to give them space to be who they are while also being respectful of who you are. But it doesn't mean that you have to make up all kinds of stories about their nature, or make a whole case about who they are, because when you do that, you're holding them in a fixed place, you're holding yourself in a fixed place, and life is not fixed. Life is ever changing. And so it often means stepping away from our righteousness to be able to forgive. I think that it also offers up a potential for a greater honesty, a greater openness. If I'm holding all kinds of accusations, resentments, judgments of you, then it only leaves you a very limited space to show up for me. I have all these judgments that are constraining my view, and it's through that view and that context that I interpret everything that you do, and then I can bolster my opinions and my righteousness and my assertions about the person that you are. And it's limiting to you, in that I'm not perceiving you as you are, and it's limiting to me in that I'm not open to the possibility of the broader version of, or a more real version of who you are. So Rosalind says, telling stories to self to validate, or telling stories to other, what is the alternative? I think the alternative is maybe curating our stories more clearly. When we're angry, we'll often enroll other people in our anger. When we feel that we've been when we feel that we've experienced some kind of injustice, we often enroll others to validate ourselves. And I think that there's a place of acknowledging that maybe we just don't know. We can move through whatever the reactivity is whatever the upset is, we can use that as an opportunity to dig more deeply into our own sensitivities and our sensibilities. But I think in so many ways we are encultured to place blame, to project outward with that blame and make other people responsible for our own experience. And so to be looking in on our own experience is a potential, or holds the potential for awakening and growth. So for instance, if I notice that I've gotten really, really triggered by somebody else, I can blame them for that. And I can make it about them, their behavior, who they are, even if their behavior is heinous. I can look back at myself and say, so what's going on for me around this? Why am I so activated by this? Why is it getting to me so deeply? What's it reminiscent of? So this is a really good example, I think. I was talking to a client friend who was having deep, deep trouble at work, feeling like there was all kinds of betrayal going on, that they were being lied to, that people weren't fulfilling. They would say one thing and do another, and that this was very, very deeply disconcerting and upsetting and enraging, actually. And in conversation, looking for what the source trigger was that these kinds of circumstances at work were activating, it went back to childhood and a deep sense of betrayal from their parents, by their parents, where they were lied to with certain regularity. They were not considered in many, many situations. And there was tremendous confusion and gaslighting and all kinds of emotional manipulation. And so there were certain judgments or decisions made as a result of those interactions that people couldn't be trusted. You know, that people will betray you, that people are deceitful. And it got generalized to pretty much anyone. People can't be trusted. And so it was interesting to start to unravel that and to bring it into certain specificity, like these particular people can't be trusted to do this, that, or the other thing, versus all people. And to be starting to recognize that that sense of distrust that had been projected to all these other people was really something that had become generalized from specific encounters, and other specific encounters that proved otherwise were being ignored. So in this case, what do we look at in terms of forgiveness? It's not like it's easy to release those resentments and those hurts. We can still recognize that there was hurt. And even in the space of that, what we're doing, it's sort of a metaphysical act in its way, right? To still be able to have the hurt to still be able to acknowledge the hurt, while at the same time releasing that grip on the whole ball of emotions that go around that, the rage, the confusion, the pain, the resentment, the sorrow, all those feelings. When we create this act of will, perhaps, that is an act of forgiveness, there is a door that opens to a greater sense of freedom, where even if our mind is still going through the machinations of blame and resentment and anger, that we don't have to attend to it from our heart in the same way. So it is, I guess, in its way, as I'm thinking of it, it seems that forgiveness is a transcendent act. It kind of transcends circumstances. It kind of transcends our righteousness, and maybe reconnects us to a different level of experience of our humanity, and the humanity of others. And to say, I can forgive. I don't forget, but I forgive. And what is attendant to that is this deep freedom, personal freedom. And I think it transcends the rational. I think it transcends our reason to direct our will to forgiveness, to say, I forgive you. And it's not something that you necessarily have to tell the other person, because the affront that you're holding is something that you're holding internally, right? You have this whole case that you've built around this other person and their transgressions and who they are and how they are and that whole case. And what if we just let it go and let them be who they are, and recognize that we know a fraction of it, or we believe a fraction of what is actually present to be recognized. That we're all more complex in our way than is apparent outwardly, right? So in granting forgiveness, we're giving ourselves a profound gift, and potentially opening space for that person then to show up in a different way, because we're letting go of the boundaries, this limited notion of who they are. And then we're leaving space for miracles. Maybe that person shows up in ways that we wouldn't have expected, because it didn't fit into our narrow definition of who we believe them to be. So interesting stuff. I mean, there's a magic in forgiveness, of releasing all that pent-up energy that we've had, that we've held, that we're gripping. It takes energy to hold on to that stuff. And if we then allow it to release, if we, through forgiveness, just sort of create an open hand, then that open hand can receive in ways that were previously unavailable. So it's worth looking at the people in your life that you might be holding resentments, telling stories about to yourself or to others or both, and to look at what would it feel like to just let that go, or to expand, to include that and everything else, to expand beyond it, to leave space for yourself to be and breathe and release all that pent up energy. And forgiveness, it can be sort of an act where there's ego involved. I forgive you, like I'm better than you, I forgive you. And that's not what we're talking about here. What we're doing here is we're releasing our web of preconceptions, not forgetting, not losing our awareness, but we are loosening the web, just where things were locked down, making space. And it's making space in our psyche and in our heart. It's kind of a magical process to really just let go. That's what the forgiveness is not I'm superior to you and therefore I can forgive you. It's not like that at all. It's that I'm creating freedom and space and heart opening, so that I can be more present in life. That's what forgiveness is, so that you can be more present in life. And so with that, I think we'll wrap it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living on those Facebook pages. And until next time, so much gratitude and appreciation to you for your willingness to engage in these topics and to just be present for these kinds of conversations and inquiries. So until next time, so much love to you.